Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hi, this is Wong from CondoWong Real Estate. I have been asked so many times regarding how much money do we need to prepare upon final closing on top of the purchase price on the agreement. Today, I would like to talk about this hot topic. I will make things as simple as possible for you to understand. In general, there are two bills that we need to take care of upon closing. The first one is the closing statement of adjustment from the developer. The second one is the statement of receipt and disbursement from your lawyer. I'm going to talk about the two bills one by one. As I mentioned, the first bill is called Final Closing Statement of Adjustment. This is the bill from the developer to you. Your lawyer should receive this around a week before the final closing. This is the bill that builder asks your lawyer to collect from you on behalf of them. So what is it about? The final closing statement of adjustment depends on 1. The agreement of purchase and sale. 2. Deposit you have made so far. 3. Any NSF for any of the deposit checks you made. 4. The adjustment, which is the most important item in the final closing statement of adjustment. The adjustment is something on top of the purchase price. The major components of this adjustment category are actually mentioned in our original agreement. Your lawyer will then collect this same amount from either you or your bank mortgage. The bottom line is the sum of what you paid in cash plus what your bank is paying should amount to what the final closing statement of adjustment is expecting. Let's walk you through with an example. Here is the scenario. A person bought a unit at 170 Sumac Street, together with a parking spot and a locker. The interim occupancy is January 17, 2014, and the final closing date is April 22nd of the same year. The occupancy period is 95 days. The closing date is when the ownership of the condominium unit is registered and transferred over to the buyer from the builder. This registration cannot take place until all the units in the condominium building have reached a degree of construction, as set out in the regulation of the Condo Act. However, before the building is registered, many of the units will be substantially complete and will already have obtained the occupancy permit from the city. This allows the builder to move the owners in without the owner having ownership of the unit. It is standard for a developer to require the buyer to take occupancy before the buyer gets ownership, and will be written out in the agreement of purchase and sale. Now, let's go back to the final closing statement of adjustment. Typically, the first thing showing on it is the HST calculation. The first question you may have must be, isn't the sales price already included the 13% HST? Well, the official answer is no. I can spend another 30 minutes to deep dive into the HST topic, and yet you may not be able to understand. So, let me give you a simple and direct answer which I think most of you can understand easily. Most of the Ontario builders included the non-rebatable portion of the HST in the price, which is around 5.2% out of the 13% for any unit less than $350,000. This leaves us a 7.8% of the HST unpaid. For any buyers that use the property as a principal residence, you don't have to pay for the remaining 7.8% as the developer will pay for it and then get the rebate from the HST office directly. Before the builder do that, you have to sign a document saying that you will live in the unit. If the builder suspects you will not be moving in, they have the right to ask you to pay for their 7.8% upon closing. If you bought the condo as an investment and plan to rent it out, you can apply for the rebate immediately. You will have to send the proof that you have closed the deal, and a copy of the lease agreement is needed. If you sell the investment property within a year, you are not eligible for the HST rebate. The first line of the calculation showed in this slide is the purchase price printed on the agreement of purchase and sale. The next two lines showed the federal and Ontario portion of the HST. Then it comes to the most important two lines. They are telling you how much out of the above 13% of the HST is rebatable portion from both the federal and from the Ontario. As you can see, the purchase price is $329,400, and the HST rebate is the sum of two lines, $5,636 plus the $18,787, so it is around $24,423. The next component of the final closing statement of adjustment is the tax you are responsible versus the tax the builder has paid. In this slide, you can see three items. The first item shows how much property tax have been deducted from your occupancy fee between the interim closing and the final closing. The next two items show how much land and supplementary tax are needed from the occupancy date to the end of the calendar year. The builder is trying to collect the tax you are responsible starting from the occupancy date. The tax you need to pay is the amount needed by the city less the amount you have paid during the occupancy period. Next component on the final closing statement is the development charge. To set the buyer's mind at ease, most developers these days are capping the development charge based on the unit size. Development charges are fees collected from the developer by the city at the time a building permit is issued. The fees help pay for the cost of infrastructure required to provide municipal services to new development, such as roads, transit, water and sewage infrastructure, community centers, and fire and police facilities. Most municipalities in Ontario use development charges to ensure that the cost of providing infrastructure to service new development is not borne by existing residents and business in the form of higher property taxes. For those who does not know, the development charge has been almost doubled between November 2013 to August 2015, from $8,356 to over $15,000. The fourth component in the final closing statement of adjustment are other fees such as status certificate, electronic registration fee, deposit administration fee, and utility connection fee. All brand new residential is governed and warranted by the Terran warranty. The mandatory enrollment fee is based on the sales price. A unit with purchase price of $300,000 pays $723. And a unit of $400,000 pays around $881. Last item is the condo reserve fund. A reserve fund of a condo is like a saving account or insurance policy for special expenditures that may come up in the future. In some provinces, condos have to have a reserve fund in a bank account that is separate from a general budget account. All monies in this account have to be placed in the easily accessible and safe investments, such as GICs or government bonds, and not in the stock market or any other risky venture. It can only be used for replacement and non-routine repairs of common elements and assets of the condo. For instance, replacement of roof, windows, boilers, carpets, and security system. Other examples are non-routine repairs to the chiller, the swimming pool, and the parking area. Most builders request each unit to deposit a sum equivalent to 2 to 3 months of condo fee. This is also a component of the final closing statement of adjustment. Besides the final closing statement of adjustment, you will also receive the second bill, a bill that created by your lawyer, called Statement of Receipts and Disbursement. There are 3 items on this bill, namely the land transfer tax and registration, title insurance, and the lawyer fee. Now, let's go back to our original question. What is the extra amount that you need to prepare at the time of closing? This slide gives you the exact answer at a glance. Basically, it is the sum of the final closing statement of adjustment and the statement of receipts and disbursements. Both end users and investors are eligible for the rebate. To qualify as an end user, you will need to move into the unit as your primary residence upon closing. In this case, you don't have to pay for the remaining unpaid portion of the HST upon closing, as the developer will ask for your permission to do the rebate on his end. To qualify as an investor, you will need to rent out your unit for a minimum of 1 year. In this case, you will have to first pay for the unpaid HST portion upon final closing, then file a HST rebate. You will need to provide the final closing statement of adjustment and the 1-year lease agreement together with the application. You can apply for the rebate as soon as you have the 1-year lease agreement after final closing. Over the past decade, the condominium real estate market in Canada has been an excellent investment in major city centers like Toronto. The business of flipping condos in Toronto is lucrative, with some people purchasing condo pre-construction and then selling as soon as the condo is built, making a tidy profit. At the same time, condo owners have been a major target for CRA. In fact, the Toronto Star reported that in Toronto, CRA auditors are aggressively looking at people who purchase condo pre-construction with the intention to flip them once construction is completed. Now, let's take a look at what you are responsible for in terms of HST and profit if you are to flip a condo. In this slide, you can see that I have put 3 dots on the timeline, namely initial purchase from developer, final closing, and end of first year lease. Depending on when you dispose the property, they may have different implications. If you sell the condo between the time you sign the purchase agreement to the time before the final closing, it is called assignment. In truth, you are not selling a property, but the rights to own a condo that is not in the land registry system. If you are making money from an assignment sale, you should report to the CRA for the income you made. There should be no HST involvement at this stage. Now, let's move on to after closing. As an end user, if you sell the condo within 1 year after final closing, unless you can provide solid proof that your intention was to use it as a primary home, you are very likely to be responsible for the entire HST without any rebate if you sell it just a few months after the final closing. Depending on the purchase price, it could be as much as $28,000. On top of it, the profit you made may be counted as an income or capital gain instead. As a condo investor, you are not eligible for the HST rebate if you are selling the condo within a year after the final closing. My suggestion is to rent out the unit for at least 18 months. In summary, if you have no intention to keep the property for a couple of years, you may want to think twice for the purchase. By now, you should have a more thorough understanding on the closing cost, HST rebate, and flipping. If you have other questions, please feel free to email me at dan@condowong.ca. I'm Dan Wong from CondoWong Real Estate. I hope you enjoyed this seminar.